It is 6:47 p.m. on a Friday. You just got paid. You can see the number sitting in your account, the full, clean, just arrived number, and for approximately 45 minutes, you feel something close to financial peace. You treat yourself to a decent dinner. You buy the thing you have been putting off. You send the money you owe someone. You top up the subscriptions. You handle a few things that have been quietly nagging at you all month. By Sunday evening, the number is unrecognizable. You did not go on holiday. You did not have an emergency. You did not make any single decision that you could point to and call reckless. You just lived. You bought ordinary things. You paid ordinary costs. And somehow, between Friday at 6:47 p.m. and Sunday at 9 p.m., the breathing room evaporated, and the next payday is 3 weeks away. Now picture someone else. Same city, similar job, roughly similar income. Their Friday looks almost identical to yours on the surface. The same commute home, the same relief of the weekend arriving, the same paycheck landing. But this person does not feel the 45-minute peace followed by the slow drain. They feel something different, something quieter and more permanent. They feel like their financial life is not going to ambush them. Not this month, not next month, not if the car breaks down, not if the company announces redundancies, not if an unexpected bill arrives with 3 weeks until payday. Their account does not produce a knot. It produces a baseline calm that you have glimpsed occasionally, but never been able to hold on to for longer than a few weeks. The difference between these two people is not income. It is not luck, not background, not a windfall you missed. It is not even discipline in the way most people mean the word, white-knuckled, gritted teeth, miserable restraint. It is something simpler and more specific. It is a set of rules, financial operating rules, that one person has and the other does not. Rules that were never taught in school. Rules that most financial content skips entirely because they do not require a product, a platform, or a subscription to implement. Rules that, once understood, feel almost embarrassingly obvious, and yet produce results that most people spend their entire working lives chasing without ever arriving. That is what today is about. My name is Isabella, and I spend way too much time thinking about why financial stability feels like a destination most people can see clearly, but never quite reach, no matter how hard they work or how much they earn. Before we get into this, I want to hear from you in the comments right now. Where are you watching from? And honestly, does that Friday evening feeling sound familiar to you? Drop your city or country below and tell me where you are on your financial journey, whether you are just starting to take this seriously, somewhere in the middle, or you have already cracked a few of these rules. I read every single comment, and I genuinely want to know. And if this kind of content is what you've been looking for, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it means you won't miss what's coming next. Now, here's the assumption most people carry. They believe that financial stability is something that arrives, that it is waiting at a specific income level or a specific age, or after a specific debt is cleared. They spend years in a holding pattern, telling themselves that things will feel different after the next raise, after the car is paid off, after the kids are through school. They believe stability is a destination on the other side of current circumstances. Here's the fundamental lie in that belief. Financial stability is not something you arrive at. It is something you build. And most people are trying to arrive somewhere they have never learned to construct. What separates the person who always seems to have money from the person who perpetually does not has a name. Researchers in behavioral economics call it the stability architecture, the specific set of financial structures, habits, and rules that function as load-bearing walls beneath everything else in a person's financial life. The concept draws from foundational work by economists Anna Maria Lusatti and Peter Tufano, whose 2009 research across 12 countries later expanded and replicated through the NBER Financial Literacy and Ignorance Project, produced a finding that restructured how researchers thought about household wealth. The determining factor in financial resilience was not income. It was not education level. It was not even net worth in isolation. It was the presence or absence of deliberate financial structure, specific rules applied consistently that prevented the ordinary friction of life from becoming a financial crisis every time. The stability architecture is not a budget. It is not a savings target. It is the foundation that makes budgets work and savings targets reachable. Without it, every financial strategy built on top eventually collapses, not through any dramatic failure, but through the slow, quiet, structurally inevitable erosion of a building with nothing underneath it. Most people spend their financial lives patching the walls and replacing the roof. The people who always seem stable built the foundation first. According to the 2023 Federal Reserve Report on Economic Well-Being of U.S. Households, 37% of Americans said they couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. Not $4,000, $400, in the wealthiest economy in recorded human history. Read that again. A 2024 Bankrate survey found that 56% of Americans do not have enough savings to cover 3 months of essential expenses. More than half the working population is operating with no meaningful financial buffer, one disruption away from a cascade that could take years to recover from. Let that sink in. According to a 2023 study published in the Journal of Financial Planning, households that operated with written financial rules, not complex plans, just specific, documented rules for how money moves, reported 34% lower financial stress scores than households of equivalent income without them. The stability was not produced by the income, it was produced by the structure. A 2022 Vanguard behavioral research study found that investors who automated their financial behavior, who removed the monthly decision from the equation, accumulated 2.4 times more wealth over a decade than investors with identical incomes who managed contributions manually. Same money, same market, 2.4 times the outcome. The only variable was structure versus discretion. According to J.P. Morgan's 2024 Household Financial Fragility Report, the primary driver of financial crisis among middle-income households was not a catastrophic event. It was the absence of any buffer to absorb a routine event, the car repair, the medical bill, the month of reduced hours, that predictably occurs in every life every year without exception. The crisis was not the event. The crisis was the missing architecture. Here's exactly how the stability architecture breaks down and why most people never see it happening. Mechanism 1. The baseline creep. Financial instability almost never announces itself. It does not arrive as one catastrophic decision you can identify and explain. It arrives through the slow, continuous expansion of what you consider a normal month, a process so gradual it registers as simply living rather than as a structural change with financial consequences. Every lifestyle upgrade that becomes permanent raises your financial floor. The slightly better apartment, the car with the higher monthly payment, the subscriptions that auto-renew, the dining standard that quietly shifted upward over 2 years. Each one individually feels like a reasonable reflection of where you are in life. Collectively, they produce a financial baseline that requires your full income just to maintain, leaving zero margin for the irregular expenses that occur in every life with statistical certainty. Think of it as building a house on land that is slowly rising. The house looks the same, the foundation looks the same, but the distance between the foundation and the flood line is shrinking every year, and nobody is measuring it. The flood, the job loss, the health event, the economic disruption does not cause the damage, the missing distance does. But here's where it gets significantly darker. Mechanism 2. The invisible future tax. Every financial decision you make today has a future value consequence that is never printed anywhere. The $480 monthly car payment you carry for 6 years is not $480 a month. Invested instead at a 9% average annual return over 30 years, that $480 a month becomes $872,000. You are not deciding between a car and no car. You are deciding between a car and $872,000. That number does not appear on the lease agreement. It does not appear in the monthly statement. It is entirely invisible, which is precisely why decisions that produce it feel completely reasonable at the point they are made. Every recurring financial commitment you make is a tax on your future self. The question is never simply whether you can afford it today. The question is what it costs the person you will be in 30 years, and that person has no voice in the negotiation. But that is not the worst part. Mechanism 3. The recovery asymmetry. Financial damage does not reverse symmetrically. A portfolio that falls 50% needs to rise 100% just to return to where it started. A month of uncontrolled spending requires 3 to 4 months of disciplined recovery to restore the same buffer. A year of missed retirement contributions cannot be recovered by a single year of catch-up. The compounding that did not occur during the missed year cannot be reconstructed after the fact. This asymmetry means that protecting financial stability costs a fraction of what rebuilding it costs after a collapse. Every month you maintain the structure is worth 4 months of recovery after the structure fails. Every contribution made on time is worth more than double the catch-up contribution made later. The people who seem effortlessly stable are not exerting more effort than the people constantly recovering. They are spending a fraction of the effort because they are maintaining rather than rebuilding. Prevention is not just preferable to recovery, it is categorically less expensive, less stressful, and less destructive to every other area of life. But here is where it gets really interesting. Mechanism 4. The emotional spending cycle. Financial stress drives spending in a cycle most people never identify as a cycle. The anxiety of financial insecurity, the Sunday evening account check, the low-level hum of not quite having enough buffer, produces discomfort. The brain, with extraordinary reliability, attempts to resolve discomfort through the fastest available pleasure response. In a modern consumer environment, that response is a purchase. Something small, something that feels like a reward, a treat, a manageable indulgence after a difficult week. The purchase provides approximately 40 minutes of relief. Then the account balance is slightly lower, the anxiety is slightly higher. The brain requests another response. The cycle tightens. The spending is not the cause of the instability, it is the symptom of it. But the symptom deepens the cause, and the cause produces more of the symptom. Breaking the cycle requires addressing the insecurity that drives it, not by earning more, but by building the structural foundation that converts financial fragility into something the brain can finally read as safe. Let us follow Sandra. Sandra is a 34-year-old operations coordinator at a logistics company in Birmingham. She earns £46,000 a year. She takes home roughly £2,900 a month. She is good at her job. She is thoughtful about money in the sense that she thinks about it constantly. It is rarely far from her attention. She does not spend extravagantly. She does not have expensive habits. She cooks at home most nights, and she does not take holidays that feel beyond her means. And yet, every month Sandra arrives at the final week before payday with somewhere between £180 and £340 left in her account, not because of any single identifiable failure, just because of the aggregate weight of ordinary life, the direct debits, the social occasions, the small purchases that felt entirely justifiable, the irregular expenses that were not irregular at all, but somehow still felt like surprises when they arrived. 2 years ago, Sandra received a £4,000 salary increase. She was genuinely pleased. She renegotiated her rent to a slightly better flat, £150 more a month. She upgraded her phone contract. She started getting her hair done at a slightly better salon. None of it felt like extravagance. All of it felt like appropriate progress. 8 months later, she was arriving at the final week before payday with between £190 and £360 left in her account. The proportions were identical. The lifestyle had absorbed the raise with the precision of a system that had been running that operation for years. She told herself she needed a better-paying job. She started looking. She found one, £52,000. She accepted it and felt for 6 weeks that the problem was finally solved. She did not know the problem was never the income. She did not know the floor had been rising the entire time. She did not know about the stability architecture, that the structure needed to be built deliberately, not waited for, not earned into, not hoped toward. Nobody had ever sat her down and shown her the specific rules that would have changed the entire trajectory. So she brought her habits into the new salary, and the new salary quietly became the new normal, and the cycle continued exactly as it had before, just with a slightly higher ceiling and an identical floor. Here is what matters most to understand about Sandra. She is not a cautionary tale about irresponsibility. She is the entirely predictable outcome of a system that was never designed to produce financial stability in the people it serves, only in the institutions that profit from the absence of it. The financial services industry earns its money on the gap between what people earn and what they keep. Credit card companies in the UK alone extract over £1.7 billion annually in interest charges, the overwhelming majority from people who would describe themselves as reasonably careful with money and genuinely intend to clear the balance. The buy now, pay later industry, the subscription economy, the auto renewal infrastructure, these are not conveniences. They are extraction architectures designed by teams of behavioral scientists whose professional purpose is to ensure that the distance between your income and your savings remains as wide as possible for as long as possible. You did not end up financially fragile because you lack discipline. You were placed within a system that was engineered with considerable sophistication and substantial investment to keep you there. The friction is by design. The defaults work against you by design. The environment was built by people who profit from your instability and who have spent decades perfecting their methods. You are not bad with money. You were never handed the architecture. You were handed a salary and a world full of extremely well-funded systems designed to make sure as little of it as possible remained by the end of the month. Rule 1. Build the financial floor before you build anything else. Every other financial goal, every investment, every savings target, every debt payoff strategy is structurally dependent on one foundational requirement being in place first: a liquid emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, held in a separate high-yield account that is not your primary current account and is not mentally categorized as available spending. This is not savings in the conventional sense. It is infrastructure. It is the load-bearing wall that determines whether everything else you build holds up under pressure or collapses at the first disruption. Without it, a car repair is a crisis. With it, a car repair is an inconvenience. The category of events that can destabilize your financial life shrinks by roughly 80% the moment this floor exists. Nothing you do with money before building this floor is as high return as building this floor. Not investing, not aggressively paying down moderate interest debt, not anything. The foundation first, everything else second.
Rule 2. Know your real number, not the estimated one. There's what you think you spend each month. There's what you actually spend. The distance between those two numbers is where the stability gap lives and grows. Pull 90 days of bank statements and card transactions, every one. Categorize everything. Find the real monthly number, not the budget, not the intention, not the approximation you carry in your head, the real number. For most people, the first time they do this produces a reaction somewhere between genuine surprise and something closer to shock. That number, your true monthly burn rate, is the most important financial figure you own, and most people have never seen it clearly. You cannot manage what is invisible to you. You cannot close a gap you have not measured. Do this once with honesty, then review it quarterly. The act of measurement alone alters behavior, not through willpower, but through the simple mechanism of making the invisible visible. Rule 3. Separate the money before you can spend it. The brain does not experience money sitting in a current account as allocated. It experiences it as available. The intention to save what is left over at the end of the month is not a financial strategy. It is an experiment in consistently outperforming the most sophisticated consumer marketing infrastructure ever built, using only willpower and good intentions. You will not win that experiment every month. Nobody does. The solution is to remove the decision entirely through structural separation. 3 accounts minimum: 1 for fixed essential commitments, 1 for variable day-to-day spending, 1 for financial goals and the emergency floor. Allocate on payday by automatic transfer before you engage with the month. The money for rent is no longer in the same pool as the money for dinner. The money for your future is not visible when you are deciding whether to buy something today. The separation does not require discipline, it requires a single afternoon of setup, and it makes the right choice the default rather than the constant upstream effort. Rule 4. Price everything at its lifetime cost, not its sticker price. The number on the price tag is the minimum you will pay. It is almost never the actual cost. A £28,000 car financed over 4 years at a representative APR costs approximately £33,500 total, plus insurance, servicing, road tax, and depreciation, transforming a £28,000 purchase into a commitment north of £45,000 over the ownership period. A $9.99 monthly subscription you use enthusiastically for the first 3 months and forget for the subsequent 33 costs $429 for something that delivered $30 of value. Before any significant financial commitment, calculate the total lifetime cost, including interest, ongoing fees, maintenance, and the future value of what that money would compound into if invested instead. The sticker price is designed to be the only number you see. It is designed that way deliberately. Your job is to see the real number. Rule 5. Automate every financial priority that is not discretionary. If a financial behavior requires you to choose to do it every month, it will eventually have a month where you choose differently. Not because you are undisciplined, because you are human, and humans are subject to variable energy, variable stress, variable emotional states, and the constant gravitational pull of present comfort over future benefit. The financial behaviors that produce stability over a lifetime are almost universally the ones that became structural before they became habitual. Emergency fund contribution, automated. Retirement contribution, automated. Additional debt payment above minimum, automated. Set these to transfer on payday, before the balance is visible, before the month has a chance to generate reasons why this particular month requires flexibility. The money that moves automatically is the money that builds your future. The money that waits for you to choose is the money that funds everything else. 6 rule. Clear high-interest debt as a financial emergency, not a background task. High-interest debt is not a manageable line item. It is a financial fire that is actively burning your future while you treat it as a standing agenda item. A £4,000 credit card balance at 24.9% APR, serviced at minimum payments, takes over a decade to clear and costs more in interest than the original balance. You are not borrowing £4,000, you are selling your future self approximately £5,000 to fund your present self's past purchases. Every pound sitting in a savings account earning 4%, while a credit card charges 24.9%, is a pound losing 20.9% annually with mathematical certainty. The order of operations is specific. Capture any employer-matched pension contribution first. It is a guaranteed 100% return, and nothing competes with it. Then, eliminate high-interest debt with every available pound, treated as urgently as any other emergency. Then, build the emergency floor. Then, invest. This order is not a preference, it is arithmetic. Rule 7. Review every fixed cost annually without exception. Fixed expenses feel permanent. They are not. They feel inevitable. They are not. Every recurring charge in your financial life, insurance premiums, phone contracts, broadband, subscriptions, membership fees, was a decision made at a specific moment in specific circumstances, and most of them have not been revisited since. The average household in the UK can save between £800 and £2,400 annually with nothing more than renegotiating and canceling existing fixed costs without changing a single discretionary spending habit. Set a date once a year, one afternoon. Pull every recurring charge. Call every provider. Ask explicitly for the retention offer. Compare every alternative, cancel every service you are paying for but not actively using. This one annual practice, taking roughly 3 hours, produces a compounding annual benefit that over a working lifetime represents tens of thousands of pounds recovered not from earning more, but from stopping the quiet automatic extraction you stopped noticing. Rule 8. Install a mandatory waiting period for every non-essential purchase. The human brain under stress, tiredness, or emotional activation is a demonstrably unreliable financial decision maker. A 2022 study published in Psychological Science confirmed that emotional states, both negative and positive, impair the brain's ability to accurately calculate future value, consistently producing willingness to overpay and underestimate total cost. The structural solution is a mandatory waiting period. No non-essential purchase above a personally defined threshold gets made on the day the desire for it is present. 24 hours for moderate decisions, 7 days for significant ones. The uncomfortable truth this rule reveals is that the majority of spending impulses are not preferences, they are temporary states. Most desires for objects do not survive contact with a calendar. The ones that do survive are the ones worth acting on. Everything that evaporates in 24 hours was not a purchase you wanted, it was a feeling you were trying to resolve through a transaction. Picture yourself waking up on a Wednesday morning 28 years from now. No alarm. The light is coming in at a low angle, like it does in early autumn. You have nowhere to be at any specific time, and this is not an anomaly, it is simply Wednesday. The financial infrastructure you built in your early 30s has been running quietly for nearly 30 decades, the way a well-built house runs. You are not thinking about whether this month will work out. You haven't thought about whether the month will work out in years. The emergency fund has not been touched since the boiler went 8 years ago and was replaced without drama. The investments are doing what investments do over long periods when nobody panics and nobody sells. Your phone does not produce a physical response when you open the banking app. You feel, in the most specific and physical sense of the word, secure. Now picture a different version of that morning. Same year.
You are awake before the alarm because the anxiety woke you first, the way it usually does when something financial is unresolved. There is a bill you have been turning over in your mind. The account is lower than it should be because October had several things in it, the way most months have several things in them. You have been earning well for 30 years. You have lived well by the visible measures, but the architecture was never built. The floor, the separation, the automation, the rules. And without the architecture, the income passed through your life like water through open hands. Impressive while it was moving, gone when you looked. Which version you become has almost nothing to do with how much you earn between now and then. It has almost everything to do with what you build and when you decide to start building it. We began on a Friday evening at 6:47 p.m. with a person watching 45 minutes of financial peace dissolve into the familiar arithmetic of not quite enough. That person is not careless. They are not uniquely undisciplined. They are operating without the stability architecture in a world that was designed to ensure they never encounter it. They were handed income and surrounded by sophisticated systems optimized to capture it, and nobody handed them the specific rules that make the difference between a financial life that works and one that perpetually feels like it is about to. The rules in this video are those rules, not strategies, not products, not motivation,
rules, structural, specific, implementable rules that convert a financial life built on hope and willpower into one built on architecture that holds regardless of what the month brings. The question is not whether you can afford to follow them. The question is whether you want to be the person who wakes up on a Wednesday morning with nowhere urgent to be and nothing financial unresolved, or whether you are comfortable being the person who is still wondering, after all these years of working hard, why stability always felt like it was just one more raise away. Now, before you go, I want to hear from you. Which rule hit closest to home for you? Was it the baseline creep that you recognized in your own life, the invisible future tax you had never calculated, or one of the 8 rules that finally named something you had been feeling but could not articulate? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and your experience genuinely matters in this space. And tell me where you are watching from. This community spans more countries and more financial situations than you might expect, and there is something valuable about knowing that the patterns we covered today are not unique to one place or one income level. They show up everywhere, in Lagos and London and Toronto and Nairobi alike. Drop your city or country below. If this video gave you something useful, a framework, a number that made you stop, a rule you are going to implement this week, please consider sharing it with one person in your life who needs it. Not because it helps the channel, but because most people are navigating this alone, and the right video at the right moment genuinely changes trajectories. If you want to keep building on this foundation, subscribing means you will not miss what comes next. And if this earned a like from you, it helps more people who are quietly searching for exactly this find their way here. Thank you for spending this time with me. Now go build the architecture.